College football features some of the best and most iconic logos in sports. Last week we explored the FCS subdivision of Division I college football, so today we're going to highlight the more widely known FBS, or Football Bowl Subdivision. With the crazy realignment structure getting all the offseason attention, today we'll focus on the conference logos themselves. And while a number of these are instantly recognizable, there's a few sleeper picks that don't get the attention that they rightfully deserve. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's ranking, as always, working our way from worst to first. Starting at number 11, we've got a conference that you may argue may or may not actually count, but we got to put one in last, and that's going to give us the Independents, which is a conference that is exactly what it sounds like. These are teams that don't really have a full home in any other specific conference. Probably the best well-known example of this is Notre Dame, who for several years now has not belonged to a specific conference. The Independents are pretty unique in that it's just kind of difficult for a lot of these schools to keep any consistent scheduling throughout the years, and aside from Notre Dame, again, it's just hard to sort of create a consistent rivalry with other schools and teams. But a huge list of schools have been an FBS independent for one reason or another. It usually comes down to conference realignment or the jump from a lower division of college football up to the FBS division of college football. There have been a number of independent schools ever since the late 70s, so I figured I'd go ahead and throw it in here. And it's interesting too because you won't see the independent schools actually don this logo on their uniforms, which will show in all the other logos that we're going to see here coming up. We had to stick it somewhere and might as well put it last because these other ones at least have the prestige and recognition of an actual FBS conference, including number 10, the ACC, or the Atlantic Coast Conference. Now, this isn't really a bad logo at all. It just doesn't feel very inspired, especially when we compare it to some of the other logos coming up here between 1 to 9. It's just a very simple logo with the letters to represent the conference, ACC. They do kind of look more italicized, and they have this slant that kind of give them a little bit more motion and energy to it, and that's highlighted by that silver stroke across the bottom, just kind of giving it more energy and flow to it. But beyond that, it's just not exciting enough to kind of carry it farther than where we have it at number 10. Now, on the football uniforms, they do actually have a football that circles around the ACC logo, and I do think that that is a lot more interesting to look at. So with that football, it looks a lot better than just the ACC logo by itself. At number 9, let's look at another prominent conference here. This is the Big Ten, a very well-known conference. It's getting a whole lot of attention, especially during the offseason. A lot of Pac-12 schools are jumping over to the Big Ten. So this is a conference that's just becoming very, very stacked over this offseason here. But the logo historically has just done very little for me. I've had to look at this logo quite a bit because it actually features a lot of teams that I really enjoy and that I really like to watch. So for this to be the actual logo for the conference has always kind of been a bit of a letdown. It just kind of has very basic, simple, bold text that you could find on Microsoft Word. The second and third letters in there look like ING and 1 and 0 for Big Ten. So it actually is pretty creative in that regard. But at the same time, with all the realignment and everything that's taking place in college football, there are way more than just 10 teams in the Big Ten. And so that number, the 10 in Big Ten, is completely irrelevant, and it kind of diminishes some of the power and the prestige that this logo specifically could and should carry if there were exactly 10 teams. And this logo for Big Ten is completely fine, albeit just a little bit boring. The only creative thing that it has going on there is that the ING also look like a 1 and 0. At number 8, let's talk about the Conference USA, which also has this kind of sleek forward motion energy to it like we just saw with the ACC, but I just really like the big blockiness of those letters. I think it's really unique and interesting, just like the font choice itself, and then also having that star right there between the C and the U to kind of give those letters some space for CUSA or Conference USA. Again, this is very simple like some of these other logos that we've already looked at, but this one just has a really understated sleekness to it that I think looks fantastic on uniforms, and I think it's just going to hold up for a while. This is just a very strong looking logo, and the same can be said at number 7 for the AAC, the American Athletic Conference, which looks very similar to Conference USA, both in color scheme and just kind of overall approach to it, with having a big, bold, blocky letter with a kind of a funky looking star that's not symmetrical. But this one just stands out a little bit more to me because it just has a large A for these, the American Athletic Conference. Great, strong, bold name, and the logo here is also just great and strong. So it really kind of matches the energy that the name carries. The American Athletic Conference, big old A, big old star, blue and red. Big fan of this. At number 6, let's focus on the Sun Belt Conference, or the Fun Belt Conference, as many people like to call it, myself included. This is a very fun, what they refer to as a group of 5 conference, not one of the power conference schools. Kind of some smaller programs here, but still some great, great talent and a fantastic logo as well. I love the rising sun coming out of the B, and we see this horizon line from the SBC, kind of the lower half of that being yellow, with the top half of that with blue. So, it feels like this sun kind of rising over the horizon. That looks awesome. And again, this looks fantastic on uniforms as well. Very underrated logo here, and I will say the same at number 5 for the MAC, the Mid-American. This is my favorite group of 5 conference in all of FBS. I love the schools that are in this conference, and there's nothing like watching some Saturday afternoon MACtion, especially getting to look at this beautiful logo dawning on all the uniforms. I'm a big fan of that crested shield look. Love the typography. The font choice looks awesome in this, and it just looks very exciting and awesome. This is just a fantastic logo, a very professional looking logo, I might add. Big fan of the MAC conference. At number 4, let's take it to another fantastic conference logo. This is the Big 12. This thing looks so sick, and I will say that gladly about the other 3 logos. 1 through 4 are just really some of the best logos in all of college athletics. This Big 12 one with the Roman numerals make it look so much more intense and bold than just having the actual numbers like a B12 like we saw with the Big 10. Those Roman numerals really give it this like iconic, stately, stoic look that just immediately add this sort of prestige and renowned look to this entire conference, which again is one of the most well-known conferences in college football. This is a Power 5 conference that's been around for a long time, and this logo here, oh my god, it is an all-time beauty. I've always loved this Roman numeral look with the Big 12. Just an all-time banger logo. At number 3, we've got another of the best known conference logos in all of sports. This is the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, which is kind of one of the most intimidating logos in college football as well, because the SEC is probably without doubt the most powerhouse conference in all of college football. And these big, bold letters have been around for so long. They kind of did some funky stuff back in the 90s with trying to change up a winning recipe with this logo, but then switching back to that kind of crunched up SEC in that circle was just a fantastic choice because, again, it just really kind of holds that prestige and notoriety that's come from decades of domination. There's just a big reason why this logo specifically is so recognizable. I mean, it just looks so good. It's so stately and stoic, kind of like how we recognize with the Big 12. And also the font choice itself is just so unique and creative. I love how they fill that space with that circle. This is just such a simple design, but it works so well, and it is well deserving of a top 3 spot. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this content so far. If you are, go ahead and give a like and subscribe. And know that here shortly, we will be ranking every team logo within each of these conferences within the upcoming week. So if you look forward to that, I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe. I'm really excited to talk about some of those conferences here. Let's go ahead and get back to the video here with number 2, the Mountain West Conference. Now, when I mentioned in the intro the sleeper picks for some of the best conference logos in the FBS, this is one of the ones that I immediately had come to mind. I think the Mountain West Conference, even outside of just this logo, is so slept on. This is one of my all-time favorite conferences in all of college athletics. I'm a huge fan of every single one of these teams. They're so exciting to watch. And this logo specifically kind of keeps me there, honestly. I never get tired of looking at this logo. That M and W popping out at you in this 3D effect that form this cube is so genius. This looks amazing. And like we've seen with most of these conferences so far, they adapt the colors to the team on each uniform while still keeping the same basic design for the logo. That keeps that MW, but they adopt like this Boise State one specifically. I never get tired of seeing that orange and blue look incredible. This is by far one of the simplest and most creative conference logos that I've seen in any sport, in any league. However, for number 1, I gotta give it to the Pac-12. Now, the Conference of Champions here has been absolutely decimated over the offseason. It is now the Pac-2, as only Oregon State and Washington State have been left, with the other teams jumping ship and going elsewhere to basically pursue better media markets. And it's just a huge sin that a conference of this prestige and this notoriety was basically gone overnight during this offseason. Now, the conference will still exist in some regard. Oregon State and Washington State, as mentioned, are staying behind. But the future of this conference is kind of up in the air. There's no telling what this will be 5 or 10 years from now. What's left behind, though, is just one of the all-time greatest conference logos. This has so much power to it, and that's by design because, again, this is one of the most dominant conferences in all of college athletics. It's literally called the Conference of Champions. But even the 12 schools that were a part of this conference were among the best academically in the country. And that shield, that crest there, is just a big reflection. We see like these big bold letters popping out over this mountain contained within this just really stately shield. This looks incredible, it's powerful, it's bold, and it is a perfect representation of, again, the Conference of Champions. This is, in my opinion, the best conference logo in FBS football. This is an incredible logo, as are most of the logos in FBS. This was a lot of fun to put together, guys. There's some great logos here, and I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know down in the comments which logo is your favorite, which conference is your favorite, and where you might place some of these on your own ranking. Thanks so much for clicking. Thanks so much for hanging out, guys. Appreciate y'all, and we will see you in the next video.